Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome once again. I hope you guys are having a great day. It is Sunday. I wanted to talk about the story of Job, our job. This is an amazing story, guys. I spent some time reading it. It is an amazing story, but what comes out for me in this story is how many times Satan went to God and asking God to allow him to do different things in Job's life, because he wanted to prove to God that the only reason why Job remained faithful with him was because he had everything. And so God allowed Satan to basically do what he wanted to do with Job's physical things, with things that really should not matter, with his wealth, with his house, with his servants. And Satan couldn't do anything. Even though he took that stuff away from him, Job remained faithful. Then he went as far as going back and telling God that if he touched skin, if he basically ruined him physically, that he will curse God eventually. And he did not. He remained faithful. The reason why I bring you guys this story is because this guy had it all. Some of us don't have it all, but we have more than most. And sometimes we're not even grateful with what we have. Sometimes God allows Satan to come into our life and move us, make things difficult, only so that we can actually kneel down and ask God to help us. Because we tend to forget that the things that we have in this life is because God allowed us to have it. That even though you are remaining faithful with God, that even though that you are praying, that even though that you're doing what you're supposed to do, to be a God-fearing person, to be a person that gives God the first thing of the day, whether it's prayer or just spending time with Him, it doesn't mean that you're not going to go through things. Sometimes the things that you go through are not for you, are for someone else, so that someone can see that the reason why you're going through the things that you're going through is so that you can be a blessing to someone else. It's hard for us to understand that. It's difficult. But we weren't brought to earth for me or for, and then when I say me, I say we weren't brought to the earth for just us. We have a tendency of being selfish and just thinking about us. And we have to realize that the reason that we're on this earth is to help someone, and hope that vice versa, someone would do the same thing for us. And when you go through experiences, it helps you to get better. When you go through trials, it helps you to humble yourself and realize, you know what? I can't do it by myself. And God allows that to happen so that you can ask for His help, so that you can humble yourself down and realize that you can't do it by yourself. What do you bring to the table, guys, as an individual? Some of us sell ourselves short. We think that we don't have something to offer to the next person. That is not the case. There's always something that you have to give that the next person doesn't have. But there's something that they have to give you that you don't have. And sometimes there's that old saying, you complete me, I complete you. Not necessarily, but we need to humble ourselves down sometimes and realize we don't know everything, and that we need help, and that we need that certain someone to help us with something we don't know. I can say that because I'm not perfect. I have a lot of things that I'm not good at, but it doesn't make me any less of a man. But if you humble yourself down and you realize that, and you say, hey, you know what? Although I don't know this, I know someone that does. And I'm going to ask them, can they help me? And eventually, not only will they help you, but you're going to be able to help them. Because trust me, that person that helped you doesn't know everything. Some of the stuff that they are teaching you, they learned themselves. So humbling yourself down is really important. And I feel that in the story of Job, even though he remained faithful to God, part of the reason he went through what he went through was because he needed to be humbled. Even though he was humbled. But maybe it wasn't for him. Maybe it was for those around him to see that the person who was humbled and believed in God was still being treated as if he did wrong when he didn't. But he showed those people that he remained faithful even when they thought that the reason why he was going through the things that he was going through was because he wasn't the guy that he claimed to be. Trust me, if you read the story, you will see that God gave him 3 times what he had, 3 times what he lost. And that was because he remained faithful, even though everything else was falling apart. It is tough to remain faithful, guys, when things are tough. It is tough to remain faithful when we know we've done everything we're supposed to do and we can't understand why we're going through the things that we're going through. It is tough, but sometimes it's not for us. Sometimes it's so that our testimony can help someone else. Sometimes we go through things that we can't understand and we can't even fathom why. I don't deserve that. This shouldn't be happening to me. I've done everything and everything that you ask of me, God. Why? He didn't ask that at no time. He didn't say that at no time. He never basically said to God, why were you doing this to me? He had doubts, just like most of us have had in the past. I'm pretty sure he had a pity party. From what I read, it seems like he had a pity party. We all have done that. We all felt so bad that we felt that making ourselves feel worse by telling ourselves that we're not worth anything is going to make a difference. It only makes matters worse. But I want to read to you here what he says in one of the chapters. And it says, and this is 15, it says, though he slays me, yet will I hope in him. I will sorely defend my ways to his face. It's crazy because even though he went through what he went through, and even though, basically he lost everything, even though his wife spoke bad about him and his friends made fun of him, he still remained faithful with God. What I'm trying to say, guys, is that when you're going through something and you feel that everything is falling apart, just pray. Read the word. Come across different verses like Job to give you the strength that you need to move on. This has been going on all over the Bible with different people. And believe it or not, it's going all over the world with people right now that believe in God. Do you know that T.D. Jakes, at his peak, and the only reason why I bring this up is because I've been hearing a lot of his preaching, where he was being used by God. He was healing people because God was using him to heal people. He was giving motivational speakings to different people. But in his own house, his mom was slowly dying. In his own house, he lost his mother-in-law. He was coming out of a preaching, sweating, coming home to feed his mom applesauce because she didn't have the ability to swallow anymore. She lost that. And he thought to himself, and this is from his own words, how is it that I can be used by God to heal different people, yet I can't even heal my own mom? That is the enemy basically putting doubt in his head. And to make matters worse, not only did he lose his mom in his peak, where he was basically being used by God left and right, but to make things worse, his daughter got pregnant at 13 years old. I can't even begin to fathom how he must thought about himself and what kind of things were going in his head. Because the devil, man, he battles with you in your head to give you self-doubt. How is it that a man that was being used that way, his house could be falling apart? But he remained faithful. Did he go through things? He sure did. He cried for 3 weeks. This was from his own words. His daughter, who never went on a date, got pregnant. 13 years old. He didn't even know why. He didn't understood for what. But you know what? It wasn't about him. God allowed that to happen for whatever reason. But if you go and you look for his daughter, man, what she went through, she uses for God's glory. She talks about how she didn't feel like she was a part of the church, how she didn't feel how she was a part of her house, how she felt like an outcast. All her brothers had something to give, but she had nothing to give. She felt alone in a house where God was obviously present. Why do I say that? Because this is someone we all know, we all heard of. And if you haven't heard of, just Google it. You'll see. Everybody knows about T.D. Jakes. Awesome, awesome preacher. God has used them tremendously. But he went through his own trials. And it wasn't about him, but it also shook him. It humbled him. It showed him. And God allows that to happen sometimes. But if you look at why these things needed to happen, it makes no sense. But right now, that girl is a preacher. She has her own church. She talks about what God did for her. She can relate to different women due to the fact that she went through what she went through. Because there's other women out there that have gone through those issues and they might feel like God won't forgive them. They might feel like an outcast. But she can actually talk about that. Sometimes we go through the things that we go through because God allows it to happen so that we could be a blessing to someone else. Because you won't listen to just anybody about what they're going through if it doesn't relate to you. And sometimes the things have to happen so that you can relate with that person and realize that if they can do it, you can do it too, guys. I hope that this word that I brought to you guys today, and yes, I kind of changed it into my own thing, was of a blessing for you, and that you guys can get something out of this. Don't forget to check the description down below, guys. I will leave the verse of Job, and so you guys can read more of his story. It is an amazing story, and what I find so interesting about the story is how Satan had to ask for permission. He had to ask for permission. He just couldn't go to Job. God was protecting Job, just like God protects you and me. And sometimes God allows it, and we can't just explain it. But know that there is a reason, and we just got to remain faithful, just like Job. I keep calling him Job. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you. Don't forget to kiss and hug your loved ones. You guys are blessed.